Japan's kind of nice in that people across the world will come here again and again and again. And not just otaku, the geek and the nerds, but, every kind of person. People interested in the shrines and temples and just like traveling in Japan, but they just come again and again. A lot of people come to Japan, they become much more confident, much more outgoing. Something kind of unique to Japan because Japanese people really are great listeners. That really helps to boost people's confidence and kind of makes them more outgoing. So I definitely say that's a great thing about Japan.
Welcome to the Winging It Travel podcast with me, James Hammond. Every Monday, I'll be joined by guests to talk about their travel stories, travel tips, backpacking advice, and so much more. Right now, I'm taking the podcast on the road travelling with me. So tune in every week for short-form episodes detailing all my travels alongside my Monday guest episode. Are you a backpacker, gap year student, or simply someone who loves to travel? Then this is the podcast for you, designed to inspire you to travel. There'll be stories to tell, tips to share, and experiences to inspire. Welcome to the show.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode where I'm joined by Matthew Baxter, who has written several books about Japan, including his latest book, Tokyo Outdoors, 45 Walks, Hikes and Cycling Routes to Explore the City Like a Local. So today we're going to talk about Japan, Matthew's latest book, and some previous books too. Matthew, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, thanks. Thanks for having me on. It's nice and chilly here in Tokyo. That's perfect weather for going to a hot spring, I'd say.
Fair enough. So I was then going to ask where you're based, but you're in Tokyo?
Yeah, I'm in a place called Chofu, which is kind of one of the cities within a city in Tokyo, just on the west side. It's a little bit away from most tourist attractions, but it's a nice kind of quiet place to live.
Awesome. We are going to delve into Tokyo and the areas and why you're there in a bit. But first, I'd like to go back to sort of the start for travellers about where did your travel initially come from? Like, where did you grow up? Was there some early memories of travel?
Yeah, I mean, well, I studied like game design at university, and as a kind of graduation trip, we decided to go to Tokyo, actually Kyoto as well. And I didn't really know much about Japan apart from the video games. But then when I actually came, I kind of thought, oh, Japan's like a really nice place to live. And so I decided to do a working holiday here.
That was going to be one of my questions later, because the UK, if you're from UK, you can do a 1 year holiday visa, working holiday visa up to 31, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's an amazing visa because you can work part time, relatively easy to find a job as a teacher if you need it. It's like a really good thing to do. I'd highly recommend it to everyone.
It's probably my biggest regret from the working visas. I've done quite a few,
Oh, right,
probably
yeah.
ticked off all the Commonwealth ones, but like the Japanese one, I just kind of regret not going there and doing it really.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of lucky. I managed to do like New Zealand, Canada, and Australia as well.
Yeah.
But I regret not doing Taiwan because they have a working holiday, and
Oh,
it's
really? Oh, wow.
yeah, and Taiwan's an amazing place. It's a bit
Yeah.
like Japan, but just more chilled out. But the language is just unbelievably difficult. So yeah, I think it's okay just for a holiday. But if you're doing a working holiday there, I think you could really get the language down.
Yeah, we went a few months back to Taiwan, and
Oh,
although
wow.
English was sort of spoken okay, for
Mm.
like for a tourist is fine, but yeah, Mandarin or Cantonese, whatever they speak, that's just a
Yeah.
tough one to learn, I think.
But what was kind of interesting is when I went there for just a few months, and for the older generations, you can speak Japanese to them, and they'll probably understand pretty
Oh,
well.
really? Oh, wow. Okay.
Um, and even some of the youngsters, they're kind of interested in learning Japanese because it's kind of the cool country to go to,
Yeah.
along with Korea. Um, so sometimes, yeah, you can just say, do you speak Japanese, and then you can have a nice little conversation.
Is that based on sort of the friendship they have now, right? They're quite close, aren't they, Taiwan and Japan? I
Yeah, I
think.
think that's, and in the past it was part of the Japanese Empire as well.
Yeah.
So some of the older generations they would have had like their high school would have been in Japanese.
Yeah.
And I think it's just it's passed on. There's lots of business ties still. Like most of the department stores, like are owned or have some kind of connection with Japan, or lots of Japanese businesses are set up there as well. Um, So it's a little bit like Canada and England or something like that, or kind of British Islands. It kind of feels a bit like.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so it's an interesting subject, right? Because it kind of goes
yeah,
back to the Empire days, which is not a
yeah,
comfortable subject to talk about if you're from one of the countries
yeah,
that have dominated the country,
yeah,
right?
yeah. They,
Pretty
they
awful.
they they have very good relations now. Yeah, they've healed a lot of wounds, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting because they're done out now as China, right? As in the mainland. Obviously, Taiwan don't want to be part of that. Who can they sort of buddy up to get the same ideas of that? It's probably like Japan and South Korea, right? So on my travels, I've just heard certain things you wouldn't believe. Like when I went to Vanuatu when the British were there, which is awful because we
Mm,
colonized it. We probably subjugated the local population to slave trade stuff or not treat them very well.
yeah,
And then some of them are saying they just want it back to the old days. This is the locals. I'm like, I can't believe it because they just fear now certain countries coming in doing business and it's now ruined the country as they see now. But back in the day,
yeah.
it was better. You just can't get your head around it.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the amazing things about traveling, isn't it? You kind of hear these opinions, and it kind of sometimes opens your mind, sometimes it shocks you.
Yeah.
Even with things like immigration or I don't know, like left and right politics, you go to a country and you have one sort of persuasion politically,
Mm.
and then you go to another country and your same camp has like opposite opinion in general to what your camp
Yes.
back home. You're like,
Yeah.
oh, okay. Okay, so maybe I was just thinking that just because I'm in that camp. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Very interesting.
Definitely what's one of the best things about traveling, I think, kind of opening your mind.
Yeah, that's probably one of the best things about it. Just get speaking to people, see what they think. But before we get to your Japan affiliation, were you interested in
Mm.
travel before that?
Not really. I think I found it pretty intimidating, the idea of traveling,
Hmm.
especially alone. But Japan is pretty easy if you're traveling alone,
Yeah.
compared to a lot of countries. And of course, it's safe as well. So I think maybe when I came to Japan, I kind of relaxed a bit and yeah, was much more comfortable traveling.
And where did the other work visas come into it? The Australia, New Zealand, Canada?
Oh, yeah. So that was kind of, I was also like kind of approaching the 31-year-old mark
Yeah.
after about 5, 6 years in Japan. And I was like, okay, I have to do that, I have to get it out of my system. So I kind of left Japan and then I did all those working holidays. And once I'd done that, I kind of thought, okay, now it's back. Now it's time to get back to Japan. But yeah, get back to learning Japanese.
Interesting, because my question would be, I know we're jumping forward a little bit here, but I'm keen to know, was your
Mm.
thinking when you left Japan that maybe you might settle in one of those countries, or did you always think in the back of your mind that you want to go back to Japan?
I think there was the first year or so I was like, okay, I actually don't want to go back to Japan.
Yeah.
Um, there's this kind of point that a lot of people get to in Japan after about 4 or 5 year mark, where they're either like set and they're going to stay in Japan for the rest of their life, or they're thinking they kind of need to get to a country that's more kind of like normal, shall we say, like not so different to the West. Um,
Yeah.
but then for some people like me, after a few years, you enjoy living in places like Australia and stuff like that. But then you think to yourself, okay, what about Japan is a bit weird at times, but there are some really cool opportunities here for foreigners as a country that's slowly opening up. And it's really like a good place to start a business. Once you get past kind of all the rules and things, it's a lot of people starting businesses here and having quite interesting careers as a foreigner, not just because they speak English, but because the skills they bring from abroad.
Mm.
And so I kind of thought, okay, yeah, I could have a normal job in the UK or Australia, or I could come here and I don't know, work at some crazy tourist attraction or do all sorts of things. Yeah, so I kind of yeah, well, okay, actually, Japan probably actually the nicest place to live, the most interesting place to live
Yeah.
from all these countries.
I do love it. I can't deny it.
Yeah.
Maybe East Asia as a whole. I mean, I loved Taiwan. I loved South Korea. I love
Mm.
Japan. I don't think I'd have any qualms of any of those countries to work for a bit. They're safe. There's loads to do. Interesting cultures, interesting languages. It's weird. You feel like, oh, in the craziness of Asia, which is like Southeast Asia and South Asia, especially, I think East Asia seems just a tiny bit more calm and a bit more, you know what, I could stay there for a longer period of time.
Yeah, and it's like kind of, and it's also little sort of silly things like, at 10 o'clock at night here, you can go and get milk or go to the supermarket.
Mm.
And when you're back in the UK and it's like 4 o'clock on a Sunday and all the shops are closed, it's just,
Yeah.
just things like that just get really annoying.
Yeah, UK's got a very interesting dynamic at the minute. Yeah, it's a love hate, I think. Yeah, there's a reason I'm not there full
Yeah.
time at the minute.
I mean, even here they've got, I like to shock people with the kind of things that are open like 24 hours. Like there's actually a jeans shop called Jeans Mate, which is open 24 hours. So if you really wanted to, you could buy jeans at 4 o'clock in the morning. It's just weird things like that. They're just so convenient. Everything's so convenient. Even the some of the cheap variety stores, they're open 24 hours as well. So let's say, imagine like 10 minutes ago, my HDMI cable stopped working or my phone charge stopped working. I could just pop off to the variety shop a few minutes away and pick something up. It wouldn't be a disaster. It'd be fine. It's just those kind of conveniences in Japan just really help. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. And also, what about like the work culture of a feeling that's quite hardcore work culture, right? Well, people assume it is anyway, where you have to work long hours maybe, or
for people who are thinking about coming here to work, I would definitely just be really careful. It really depends on the company. If you're going to go and want to work for some traditional Japanese company, some bank, or some kind of some really old company, they're going to have rules that are just not going to be able to be changed. For newer companies, or who work for a foreign branch here, it might be much more relaxed and much more progressive. But I definitely, I would always warn people like you won't be able to change the whole culture of the company.
No.
But if you do find a company that's kind of more flexible and more progressive, then you can have a really amazing time here.
Okay. And before we get stuck into Tokyo and Japan as a whole, can I just take you back to that trip that you first went on post university?
Yeah.
Was that the 1 year working visa? And was the idea to go and see the country, do you think, at that point?
Yeah, I think at first it was just a 2-week holiday, and then literally I came back like in a few months later on the working holiday. I think, my initial impressions were just kind of, I think people who are living here, we can always tell, there's this kind of joke, we can tell who's a tourist and who lives here. If you're walking around and you're looking straight ahead of you, you're someone who's living here. If you're always looking up at the towers and all the shops that are on the 10th floor, you're a tourist. You're just amazed by all these floors and floors and floors of different attractions and businesses, all these signs, brightly lit signs up into the sky. And I was just kind of amazed by all the different foods and just the how people reacted and how people behaved. It's just so different to anywhere I'd been to. And just getting used to all the conveniences, the supermarkets, the convenience stores, the conveyor belt sushi. It's just it's pretty amazing. It is a bit like being in a Ghibli film at times.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think my friend who goes on a few work trips there just said it's you can't explain it that well, but it is the definition of organized chaos, where things are just going off everywhere, lights, sounds, traffic, people, but there is a sort of orderly rule to it.
It's a bit like the train stations or the Shibuya crossing would be a perfect example of that. If you just looked at a picture, you might think, how is this working?
Yeah.
But everyone just somehow gets to where they want to get to. And no one hits into each other, or it's just very, very people just walk through the hundreds of thousands of people walking through the station. But everyone gets to their destination in time.
And how did you see Japan in the first 2 weeks? What was your holiday? Was it just dotting on the bullet train to a couple of cities, or was there anything in particular that you wanted to see? What was that first 2 week trip about, and where did you go after on your 1 year work visa?
So we did the classic Japan rail pass trip.
Yeah.
So we spent a few days in Tokyo, kind of getting acclimatized, just going to the major places like Shibuya, Shinjuku, kind of the major cities on the west side of Tokyo. And then we went down, I think, to Nara,
Oh yeah,
which is famous
deer.
for the deers,
Yeah,
and really nice temples as well, aren't there?
yeah, loads. Yeah.
And then Kyoto for a few days, I think, after that, which is just, it's just a heaven of temples and shrines, isn't it? There's so many
Yes.
different ones you can go to. And I think went down to Hiroshima, to the atomic bomb museum. I think we stopped off in Kobe on the way back.
Yeah.
That's kind of interesting. I would recommend people stop off there just for an afternoon or something. That's a nice foreign related attractions. And then came back to Tokyo and spent a few days there, just kind of going into some places like Roppongi, which is a nice kind of posh area in the center, and Ikebukuro, which is kind of like not many people go there, but it's kind of a nice city within a city with all the big electronic shops. And I remember being amazed by the internet cafes here, kind of unlimited drinks, ice cream, and snacks. And it's about £5 an hour.
Wow.
They still have them here, actually. They still got them, and the karaoke is amazing as well. I think we went to karaoke last night, and it was about £6 an hour.
Oh wow!
And it's unlimited drinks. It was awesome. That kind of thing, it would just really amaze me. But then coming back on the working holiday, I based myself in Tokyo.
Yeah.
And I really just wanted to focus on Tokyo, but I did a few trips like to Nikko, which is a really nice for a weekend trip you can do from here. I think I went to Kyushu as well, which is one of the islands down south, which is much more rural and not at all as built up as Tokyo. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I think Japan is the only place I've been to for what I would say is a considerable amount of time in terms of traveling as a month, where I felt like I just touched the surface. You know, some places you go to where like you can pretty, I'm not gonna say complete it, but you can really see a lot in a month. Japan, I felt the opposite. I went to Nagasaki as well.
Oh yeah, Nagasaki's nice, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. Like you just dip in there for 2 or 3 days. You did a Japanese rail pass, and then we based ourselves in Tokyo for a week because my partner's got a friend who lives there. And
nice.
it's just an amazing time, and it's the only country I think I sort of officially declare as a country I'll go back to. I don't normally go back to many because I like to go to new countries, but I think it's the only place that tomorrow it would trump any new place pretty much because I just want to see so much more of it.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because I think Japan is rather unique in that way that there are a high number of return visitors. Looking back at like the tourism data, like a few months back, and surprising number of people come back again and again and again. I can't think of any other country that's like that. Maybe Korea. I can imagine people going there like repeatedly, but no, of course, there's some places like Mallorca, which a lot of British people go to again and again and again. But
hey, just a quick one. I just want to say there are many ways to support this podcast. You can buy me a coffee and help support the podcast with $5. Or you can go to my merch store with the affiliate link with TeePublic, where there's plenty of merch available to buy, such as t-shirts, jumpers, hoodies, and also some children's clothing. Thirdly, which is free, you can also rate and review this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podchaser, or Good Pods. Also, you can find me on social media on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok. Simply just search for Winging It Travel Podcast, and you'll find me displaying all my social media content for traveling, podcast, and other stuff. Thank you.
Japan's kind of nice in that people across the world will come here again and again and again. And not just otaku, the geek and the nerds, but every kind of person. People interested in shrines and temples, and just like traveling in Japan, they just come again and again.
I think the appeal is also the amazing travel network, right, of the trains. It's not an issue. The only issue is you got to pay the price, and that's fine. But then they all work all on time, super fast. Nowhere seems to be out of reach, and you can really plan a good trip with that in the back of your mind.
First week I got back here this year, the train was delayed by 2 minutes, and there was an official announcement apologizing for the delay.
That's brilliant.
I was like, I kind of chuckled and thought, yeah, I'm back in Japan. This is
Yeah,
good.
here in the UK, that's a great result. 2 minutes late, we'll take that. So you base yourself in Tokyo. Actually, before we
Yeah.
get stuck into Tokyo and your book,
Mm.
how did you stay long term?
Yeah. So I after the working holiday, I started working at some English teaching companies here, and a lot of them will sponsor.
Okay.
There's a real big demand for teachers here, from England and from the United States. So it's a pretty easy place to get a job, one of those. And yeah, kind of went for a few different companies, switched jobs a few times, but most of those, I think I did like 2 or 3 years with each company.
Hmm.
Then I come back this time on a student visa. So I got a 2 year student visa, and I can do part time work as well
Yeah.
alongside that. So it's easier as long as you've, like, in the past you've paid your taxes and your health insurance,
Hmm.
um, and you make absolutely no mistakes with the paperwork. You can get a visa pretty easily here.
That's an interesting comment. No mistakes with the paperwork.
Yeah, I remember that for this visa, there's about 20 emails back and forth I had with the school to make sure my application was absolutely perfect.
Wow.
But then when I applied it, I got it in like a week because everything was just perfect for it. Yeah. So, but the school knew. Okay, for example, things like sometimes people change their resume a bit, don't they, over the
Yeah.
years?
Hmm.
They might omit one thing
Yeah.
and then put another one in, but the resume I submit has to have exactly the same things as the resume I submitted like
Got it.
5 years ago and
Mm.
10 years ago for those visas. If there's one thing that's different, they'll deny it.
Wow.
It's that kind of thing you have to make exactly sure is always correct, always the same as before. But yeah, like I said, if it is all okay, um, yeah, your visa will be ready in a matter of weeks or days.
Okay. And then is
Yeah.
your aim to get residency in the country?
Yeah, definitely. After I finish my student visa, I can hopefully move to a working visa. And then what usually happens here is that after several years to 10 years, depending on what kind of work you're doing,
Hmm.
you can just switch that to a permanent residency. And then, yeah, hopefully I can get that. And then, yeah, stay here forever. Would be nice.
Does the permanent residency have like a end date? Because the one in Canada I've got has a 5 year end date, so you have to keep renewing it until you get the pass. If you get the
Yeah.
passport citizenship, then there's no more admin. But some permanent residencies, like New Zealand or Japan, they don't really have, by the sounds of it, an end date.
Yeah, I think you have to do some kind of renewal. I'm not sure if there's an actual end date. It might depend on the circumstances. Like if you're married to a Japanese
Mm.
person, there might be something where they need to confirm that every few years. But yeah, I'm not 100% sure. But I think you just need to do something with immigration every few years just to make sure you're, still paying your taxes and things.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
very few people get citizenship here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't think I'm not sure if it's a language thing or it's just, or it could be that actually officially Japan doesn't allow dual residency
Got it.
or dual passports.
Yeah, yeah, that might be
So
a reason.
technically,
Mm.
yeah, if you get like a Japanese passport, you're supposed to, um, yeah, not use your English passport anymore. And you're supposed to like go to the British embassy and say like, I'm not British anymore. And I think that's kind of puts people off.
Yeah, because certain countries do obviously allow that. Canada's like one of them. So
Mm.
I think by the time we get the passport in 18 months' time, we just have both. Some countries are pretty strict on that. I do wonder where it's going as a whole. Is it going towards one passport only, or are more countries letting you have two? Not sure.
I wouldn't be surprised if Japan relaxes it in the future.
Oh yeah. Mm.
Yeah, I mean, the government kind of really understands they need lots of people to come into the country to do work that's available.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised if in 5 years they just casually announce dual residency or dual passports are okay.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
wonder if they'll base it on country though, which would be interesting. Like, yeah, like
Yeah.
if you're from UK, for example, that's fine. But if you're from, I don't know, another country in the world that's not got a strong passport, they don't allow it, unfortunately.
Yeah, that could be the case, couldn't it? Yeah, I would expect like EU and UK and America will be first, and then kind of other countries will be next.
Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so Tokyo. So you're based there. You've written a book, the
Mm.
latest one.
Yeah.
Tokyo Outdoors, 45 walks, hikes, and cycling routes to explore the city like a local. First off, I'll tell you what I love about it, because I've had it for the week, is the way you set it out. So you have an area
Oh, thank you.
and
Mm.
you come up with like a start and end point of maybe a walk or a cycling route or whatever. And then you give places of interest. And then there's like 4 or 5 of those. It could be like a museum or a temple, whatever. You give a recommendation
Mm.
for a cafe, for like a meal spot, and maybe something to combine it with as well. And which is pretty cool because it kind of dishes out to the basic traveler, if you like, or someone who's nervous. Ah, great. So if I go to this area, you recommended this, I can do this starting point, end point, go to these places, have food here, done for the day. I think that's a really cool way of doing it. So I loved it.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I kind of thought a lot about that because I wanted to make it so that, yeah, people who are not experienced travelers can use it pretty easily. But then people who've been here a few times already, they can do something a little bit different. They can
Yeah.
do one of the more obscure sites in the book and like still come across things that they wouldn't have ever found out about.
And do you think for Tokyo, because it's so big, that
Mm.
this book is sort of possible, isn't it? Because there's hundreds of areas. But I do wonder if like any other cities in Japan could have the same book, do you think?
I think maybe Kyoto could.
Oh yeah.
Um, yeah, Kyoto has a surprising number of like shrines that are not in the tourist books, but are pretty amazing. I guess there might be a risk that you'd be kind of shrined out, as I say, like you just have too many shrines in one day,
Yeah.
too many temples. So maybe Osaka might be also quite good though.
Oh yeah, of course.
That's kind of like a big metropolis, isn't it?
Yeah.
Kind of connected to a few other cities. I think what helped for me with writing the Tokyo Outdoors is that I lived here for so long that I found out all these different little places just from walking randomly around and just hearing recommendations from friends. I would be really interested to see if someone could do the same kind of book for Osaka. Who's lived someone who's lived there would be the best person to do it because there are so many little nooks and crannies in these cities that often the locals don't know about, and it just takes a long time to find out where they all are and also how to explore them because some of them, maybe there might be a bus that everyone knows about, but there might also be some little bicycle rental shop around the corner, which makes it easier. There's lots of little things where it just makes it so much easier once you've lived here for ages to actually know the best way to do things.
Awesome. So I guess it's like I don't how long have you lived in Tokyo? What, 8 or 9 years?
Yeah, it's been about that. Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So it's like a information based on the last decade, pretty much, of what you've seen and done, and niched down to Tokyo.
Yeah, and kind of like being a real cheapskate, just wanting to walk to places rather than like take the train.
Mm.
Really helped to kind of explore places. And then in the last few years, there's also been a kind of a big growth in bicycle rental system. A bit like what they called in London, the Boris bicycles.
Boris
It's
bikes.
not what they're called
Yeah.
anymore, is it?
Well, I don't know what they're called anymore. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can't say his name too
But
loudly, I think.
but they got in Tokyo. They got two systems. One's called Hello Cycling, which has kind of big beefy bikes
Mhm.
with little motors, which really helps on uphill sections. And then there's also NTT, which is like the Japanese BT, and they have their own little bike system as well. And it's about 1,600, 1,800 a day,
Okay.
depending on the location. And you can just take your bike from one point, drop it off somewhere else. And the bikes are always well maintained. They've always got power in the battery, and it's just a really great way to explore the city. So that's also kind of opened up a lot of places that before I thought were a bit of a walk, but now I can do quickly on the bicycle.
So has Tokyo built bicycle lanes, or do you bike just on the road?
Yeah, that's a good question because there are some lanes on some roads, but I'd say 1 out of 10 people use it here.
Oh, okay.
Most people just go on the pavement.
Oh, right.
If you're in a busy area, it's just impossible to use a bicycle. And like around one of the stations or a tourist area like Harajuku, it'd just be nuts to
Yeah.
use a bicycle. But maybe a few train stops away, it would probably be okay. Take the normal level of caution that you would like in any country, really. Um, and then if you like were to take a train ride about 20 minutes, half an hour away, so many nice cycling routes along the rivers and into the countryside and the suburbs. It's kind of pretty well set up for cycling because the roads are well maintained. You've got those cycling systems I mentioned. And yeah, if you ever get thirsty or need a snack, there's always going to be a convenience store, 30 seconds away, or a vending machine 5 seconds away. So it's really well set up.
And are the bikes available in like the outer areas, or do you have to carry your bike onto a metro train or bus to go and bike the area that you want to, or is it sort of available anywhere in Tokyo?
They're pretty much available anywhere. It may be that you have to use one system, like the NTT might have a certain area locked down, and then Hello Cycling might be on another area.
Got it.
So I usually recommend in the book to check the apps first, just to see like which is the best system to use, and also you can check the kind of availability for bicycles as well. And I think also Google Maps have recently added availability on Google Maps, so you can like search for Hello Cycling and you click on the icon, and it will show you how many bicycles are available, how many parking spots are available, and then you can literally like click a link and book the bicycle. It's pretty awesome.
Oh, that's so easy.
Yeah.
Wow. Was that not a thing 5 years ago or 6 years? How new is this, do you think?
It's pretty new. Yeah, I don't think it was around 5 years ago. Maybe they were just building up the networks.
Yeah, I don't remember being a thing or an option. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think some cities like Nara and Kyoto, they had their own local systems. Like, you go to a tourist information center or your hostel or something. But now these two systems are kind of like linking up all these local networks, so it's going to be much easier, I think, from now on.
Okay, and from your book, I'm going to throw this question in there. You got 45. It says it listed here on the front cover.
Yeah.
Maybe give listeners like 3 areas that they definitely should go and check out for a bit of a bike or walk that you would recommend.
Yeah, cycling rides. If you really want a really long cycling ride, Tama River is really nice. On a nice sunny day, it's just lovely going down that river. And it's not packed with tourist destinations, but you're cycling past people out doing their everyday things, playing baseball, fishing. You might also come across a little local temple and shrine. There are castle ruins along the way. And yeah, it's just a really great bicycle ride to do if you've been here a few times and you just want to experience local life for a day.
Yeah.
So that's a really good bicycle ride. Well, I mentioned Ikebukuro earlier, and that's a nice city walk because it's changing quite a lot. But in the past, it wasn't very cool. It was, I don't know what you compare it to, like in the UK, it would be like if Shinjuku is London, Shibuya is Liverpool, Ikebukuro is, I don't know, Hull. Kind of, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But now things are really changing. Like a few weeks ago, they opened a new Animate Mega Mall. It's the biggest like animation and manga store in the country now. They've opened a new park with a nice posh cafe and bar. And they've got barbecue there as well. And there's some of the things from the past as well, which have always been popular, like the aquarium and there's all things like there's a Capcom museum and cafe, and these things weren't here like 5-6 years ago, most of them. So it's really kind of interesting to walk around and to see how much the place has changed, and you probably won't see many tourists there, which is kind of nice, but it's still a big built-up area. But I'd say if you want something a little bit quieter, Machida is a really nice walk or cycle ride. It's a kind of little outcrop of Tokyo on the west or southwest side. So it's technically still in Tokyo, but you could easily be mistaken and think it's, Kanagawa, which is the next prefecture. That's I've got a nice cycling ride along a canal and then down to one of the local parks, which again you would expect to be kind of not much. You wouldn't expect there to be much there, but there's a really cool restaurants using local food from the community farms. There's a cool little shrine and temple around. Yeah, you can kind of experience suburban life as you walk around or you cycle down the different alleyways and narrow streets. It's pretty cool.
So if you like traveled in Tokyo this way, it sounds like it's quite a good budget option because I assume the bikes aren't that expensive. And then you would go to like real local cafes or shops, which won't have maybe the hiked tourist prices. So I guess in theory, this way is cool because you're not actually falling for the tourist trap, I guess.
Yeah, totally. And I think, especially if you go to some of the touristy areas in Tokyo, you kind of can't help like spending so much money because there are so many kind of they call them like power spots here or things you kind of have to do.
Yeah.
But you can, if you go to somewhere that's a bit quieter or off the beaten track, you can kind of take your time. You're spending so much time, just experience things, just looking at things. There, you kind of spend less money, and even like in terms of the prices in the restaurants and the shops, it will be at least maybe £1 or £2 cheaper for food, and that builds up because you usually eat out in Japan.
Yeah, 100%. Do you think you need to know the language as well in these like local areas, like the Japanese language?
I would say you've got Google Translate. You should be fine.
Yeah.
The Wi-Fi is becoming much cheaper here or more available. It's not as good as the UK, but it's better than before. And SIM cards are pretty cheap. You can get them for about 2,000 yen at the airport. It gives you enough data for most people's holidays.
Yeah.
And so you can just Google Translate, and people are pretty familiar with that because they use it quite a lot here. And but you might find that there'll be one person in the shop or one person in the cafe that speaks English, and they'll jump into action when they see you struggling with the menu or something like that. So awesome. I don't think it's something to worry too much about. Yeah,
that kind of brings me on to the Japanese people. I think they're some of the nicest that I've experienced. I guess you might have a different perspective living there. So is that a fair assumption?
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah, people are really nice here. They can be shy.
Yeah,
but that's kind of sweet in a way, isn't it, when they're shy? There are things like if you're lost and you ask someone for help, even if they don't understand really what you're saying, if they know the destination, they'll guide you there.
Yes,
that kind of thing happens all the time. And in terms of the language, people can be accommodating. Yeah, if your Japanese is not perfect, if you're trying, they really appreciate it. So even if you say like hello, konnichiwa, they might be like, oh, your Japanese is so good. So they're very encouraging. So yeah, I would definitely agree. Yeah, Japanese people are generally really nice.
And the language is quite difficult, isn't it? Do you think? It's got 3 different alphabets, right?
Yeah, it's difficult in a way and it's easy in another way. It's like, so the sentence structure is different, usually with verbs, nouns, and the kind of grammar particles. But so one of the character sets, so you got hiragana, which is first the main syllable, kind of main characters. Katakana, which is usually used for foreign words and onomatopoeias. And then you got kanji, which is from China. A lot of words are being copied over from English, and the meaning might change. But if you Japanize the word, it might work.
Oh, okay.
So if you're lost and you're trying to find something, a particular item in a shop, if you say in a Japanese way, it might work. Like I remember a friend, he was looking for tracing paper, and he just went to the shop and said tracing paper, and the person understood. Perfect understanding. Like even things like or technical things like I remember I was once talking to someone about a construction that was going on, and someone asked me like, how do you say bulldozer in Japanese? And I just went, oh, bulldozer, and the Japanese person understood. that kind of thing, just like, oh, okay. So, and computers, all the words are the same.
Yes.
Sometimes things might be shortened, like copy paste. They might shorten that to copy, or personal computer is shortened to pasokon.
Okay.
But those things just make it easier to remember. So at the beginning, it's kind of difficult,
Hmm.
but then once you get to an intermediate level, um, you can get by pretty easily.
Okay.
Mm.
And in your book, do you give recommendations for places to stay in terms of accommodation and areas?
Yeah, that was something I thought a lot about, and I think these days a lot of people just there's so many options on like Booking.com
Mm.
that I kind of thought, okay, I could recommend hotels and hostels, but then I've never had a bad experience of a hostel or hotel in Japan. And if someone finds a better deal on Booking.com in an area that I've recommended in the book, they should just go for that.
Yeah,
They're
fair
never
enough.
they're not going to have a horror story. So um, what I've what I focused on in the book was having locations that are near to each other, which you can combine with other ones. So therefore, if you get a hotel or a hostel in a certain area, you can save money and also be easier to travel around if you're always kind of basing yourself from certain train stations or certain areas.
Mm.
And you can do a few bicycle rides and a few walks, kind of in close proximity. Yeah, so I think that's something that maybe guidebooks kind of don't really need to do so much anymore. I mean, it's just kind of it's much better to do on the internet, I think, to find what kind of a hotel you want to stay at.
Yeah, I agree. I think the options and the amount of blogs and
Mm,
online guidebooks, if you like, there's so much. Yeah, you could just pretty easily find it on Google, I think.
yeah,
Um,
I think even if you're loyal to a certain brand, if you find something cheap on Booking.com,
yeah,
you just go for it.
yeah.
And in Japan, it's not like you're going to turn up. I don't know, like what experiences you've had in like Southeast Asia, but I've booked some places and then I've arrived and I'm actually being moved to another hotel or some weird
Yeah.
things like that. And that just never happens in Japan. You never arrive and the water's not working or the room's dirty. That never
Mm.
happens. So you can just kind of book with confidence. It will be okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess where your niche will come in is the area. Maybe people could look in your book, go, "Oh, that area seems cool for like some walking or biking routes. Let's stay there," and then they just do their
Yeah.
own accommodation based on that.
Yeah. I think so. Yeah. And they'll be fine. No problem at all if they use booking.com or Agoda's a good website as well.
Yeah,
Um, must have pretty strict policies or like there's no bad hotel in Japan. But yeah, it's really yeah, quite easy to do.
and what I like about your book is at the start you did give some useful information. I guess for Japan as a whole, sort of niche down to Tokyo a little bit. Yeah, the Japanese rail pass and all that sort of stuff, right? And then you niche down into the subways in Tokyo and some useful information, which is
Yeah.
needed, I think, because it can be quite overwhelming. I think looking at somewhere like Japan, where there's just so much to read, see, and do that people might get a little bit sort of overwhelmed.
Yeah, even in Tokyo, it's kind of overwhelming because there are two kind of subway networks, which are separate companies. And then you've got lots of private lines. You've got
Mm,
JR, which is like the main national line.
yeah.
And all of those companies have their own passes. Some are just for foreign tourists, some are for locals and tourists as well. And so it can get pretty overwhelming. So with the book, I kind of thought, okay, if I just focus on the main metro passes
Yeah.
and also the Tokyo White Pass, which is the main pass from JR, the national company,
Hmm.
that will make things easier. So that if you in the morning you do one walk and you're ready and you're finished, you can go to another place in Tokyo on a bus pass or train, sorry, on a train pass or subway pass. I thought that'd be a really good way to do it so that you don't confuse yourself with too many passes because it's kind of overwhelming. Yeah.
Do
Mm.
you have any like cool facts or like figures about Tokyo? I think one crazy one is the population, right? It's huge.
Yeah, isn't it something like 35 million
Yeah.
in the actual metropolis? Yeah,
Yeah.
because it's all kind of connected. Like London, when you take the train out, you're going to the countryside
Yes. Yeah.
pretty soon. But here, you won't see the countryside if you're on certain lines. You'll just never see it. It's just all city.
Mental.
Um, yeah, it is crazy. Yeah, I don't know the actual numbers. Whenever you see the yearly train numbers, also the delay numbers, like how many minutes or how many seconds the trains have been delayed, and they have like rankings for the train companies,
Yeah.
and they're like, okay, the worst one had a 5 minute average. It's not that bad. So that's the
Bloody
kind of
hell.
thing that I find quite amusing here. Yeah, it's not back to pre-COVID levels, but the tourists numbers this year are going to be about half of what they were before
Oh,
COVID,
really? Oh, wow. Huh.
um, which is really encouraging. So I think that's showing that Japan's making a great effort in getting people back, and things like you don't have to wear a mask anymore.
Mm.
Japan was really careful at
Yeah.
the beginning. All the shops are advertising tax-free again, and making it really easy to know where you kind of get your tax back. So yeah, there's a lot of effort at the moment to get tourists back, which is really great.
Yeah, that's great. I think Japan is a country you just have to see. So the fact they're making it a bit easier post COVID is
Yeah,
good. Is good news. Why do you love Tokyo?
so many reasons. Yeah, I think just in terms of living here, like I like how every day I can do something interesting.
Hmm.
Um, like if you're living in a British town, once you've seen the church, done a few walks around the countryside, kind of there's nothing like that's going to surprise you. But yeah, I get surprised here every week. Just going to some random area and I'll come across some just crazy things. Like a few days ago, I was walking in Shinjuku and I came across a new burger shop or burger restaurant. It's a macaroni cheeseburger. The
Yeah.
burger covered in macaroni cheese. I was like, oh, that looks awesome. And it's only like £8. Those kind of things just happen all the time here, and it just always keeps things interesting. Yeah, it's probably the main reason I stay is that there's always something interesting.
I think what I like about it from an outside perspective, looking into Tokyo,
Mm.
would be the problem I find with someone like UK, and this might be unfair or fair or whatever. I think you're right. Once you've seen the few things in a town, or
Mm.
or even London, I'd arguably say, once you've done the tourist things once, and I think like here, I think it's like a drinking culture just takes over, and this is all about how much alcohol you can drink, and that's basis of a lot
Yeah,
of things. Where I'd want to be doing different types of things in a city that's not based on that. I think
yeah,
arguably Australia is a little bit like that as well. They love their drink and it's like alcohol based, but at least they have good weather and there's maybe
mm.
slightly other things to do. But Tokyo just seems to me that I'm not a gamer really, but I could get into games one week and then go and do some stuff to do with that. Or I don't mind baseball, so I could go and watch baseball one week. Like there's different
Oh
types
yeah,
of stuff within Japanese culture, but also Tokyo that I like a great sort of lifestyle to have where you can just go and see and do different things if you need it.
yeah, totally. And I think it's also because it's like there are cities and or just cities in the city in a
Yeah.
way that there's just you can just think, oh, okay, I'll spend a day in Ueno,
Oh yeah.
which is
I love that
a
area.
kind of
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. I mean, it's amazing, isn't it? And
Yeah.
that could for a lot of people that might be the size of their actual capital or their
Yeah.
actual
Yeah.
hometown. But there's just so much to do, like, and it's takes 45 minutes if you're coming from the west side. And it's very easy to get to, and you can spend a whole day exploring a new area. Yeah, it's even now there are people telling me about places in Kanagawa and Saitama where I'm thinking, oh, okay, yeah, I could go there for a day. That'd be kind of interesting.
Yeah. When I was my first or our first introduction into Tokyo, we booked somewhere there. We booked like this like capsule sort of hotel type thing. And the area is great.
Was it the Capsule Hotel in the main shopping street? I think it's called like Oriental Capsule Hotel or
Yes.
something.
Something like that. Yeah,
Ah,
yeah.
see, I stayed there as well. Yeah.
Yeah. And the best thing about this area, so that the hostel, the capsule hotel thing is great. What I couldn't believe was how good the bathroom was for men. I think women it's
Ah,
different,
yes.
but for men it was like
Yeah.
jacuzzis, saunas, steam rooms,
Yeah.
showers, stations to wash your hair, everything you can think of. But I think the women just had a
Yeah.
bath and that was it. So it's super comfortable. Yeah.
Yeah. That's also the great thing about Japan is that those baths and when you even if you go out 20 minutes away from Ueno, you can go to like real hot springs. And like if you've had a stressful day at work, just go into a hot spring for an hour or two, and you forget all your worries, and it's so relaxing.
Yeah, it's a nice, comfortable way to start it, I think, because then we sort of branched out into like little local restaurants and bars. We went for a drink, and these Japanese locals having I think it must be like a work team or something, like mix of men and women trying to speak to us. They don't speak great English, getting a Google Translate out. So we had a nice little time with them, trying to understand what's going on. And then in that area, you've got all the game shops, the 100 yen shops. There's a temple and this like park where you walk through the sort of lilies, like a little bit, stuff like that. Very, very different type of stuff to go and see in one little area of Tokyo, but it is a big area.
Yeah. I think in terms of like drinking, like if you do want to go out drinking, Japan's can still be pretty good. Like, you say, you'll meet locals, have a good time. There are lots of all-you-can-drink places here. Probably not priced for foreign tourists. They're probably priced for business outings and stuff. So you can really get your money's worth. The same goes for food as well. You can like eat out and maybe have like 90 minutes of all-you-can-eat meat for like 3,000 yen. And just stuff yourself on food. It's just those kind of things can be really good here as well.
Yeah, I was going to touch on food actually. That was going to be like my next thing about what I found in Japan. Again, from a tourist perspective, not a local perspective, is for tourists, it's not too bad for breakfast because a lot of cafes have these sets where you buy, I don't know how much it'd be, like 600-700 yen, and you get like an orange juice, maybe a coffee and a pastry and something else. And they're pretty, substantial, I think, for the day. How do you see Japanese food for like maybe a tourist?
Yeah, I mean, those kind of places are good, but I'd say a lot of hostels will have like free breakfast, which helps. And some of the nicer hotel chains as well will have breakfast buffets. So stuff yourself on food in the morning, and you can have a nice light lunch, maybe soba or udon at the station. But also the convenience stores are pretty good for breakfast.
So
you can get like a onigiri, which is like a rice ball, or little snacks, just little pieces of bread. So you could have breakfast for like literally 100-200 yen, and that would be perfectly fine. Yeah.
And what do you normally advise or even eat yourself for like dinner in the evening or even lunch as well? But like, what are some of the Japanese foods that people must try?
Oh yeah, definitely. So I'd say, so of course you've got to try the conveyor belt sushi, which is so much easier than it was before. Like they're everywhere now. I would also say, like, try some of the local cuisine. Like, try some Okinawa food. There's some restaurants in Tokyo that have Okinawan food, and they have some weird things because that was where the Americans had their bases originally, right?
Yeah.
And so you got there's some weird mixes of American and Japanese food. Like one of my favorites is taco rice.
Okay.
So imagine the fillings you have in a taco on rice. Just weird things like that.
Wow. Okay. So it's like a Tex-Mex Japanese combo.
Yeah. And then they have like noodles with spam in, and like spam, like Japanese omelets, just weird things like that. So definitely I'd recommend trying those. It's also good to like try some of the teishoku chains, so Japanese set meals. Yao Iken is probably the best one. They've got restaurants all over Tokyo, and you can try lots of different dishes. But because it's only maybe 800 to 1,000 yen, if you don't really like it, it's not a major disaster.
Yeah.
And there's free rice, free tea. So it's like a really good deal. Yeah.
Tell you what we both liked actually. Emma is vegetarian, so it's a bit of a struggle actually to find. Understand is vegetarian and not got any meat broth or meat in it. She does eat cheese, so we had a okonomiyaki. Is that the Japanese pizza?
Yeah, okonomiyaki. Yeah,
which is really good.
Japanese pancake.
Oh, it's a pancake. Yeah, they were. Pretty cool and pretty tasty as well, I must admit.
Well, that's kind of an experience, isn't it, as well? Did they make it for you, or did you make it yourself on the table?
No, they made it for us, but you could see what they're doing.
That's cool. Yeah,
So
that's that's a really cool thing about Japan. Like, going to the counter or eating at the counter, you can see the chef doing his magic.
Yeah.
And you can see the skills. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, and for vegetarians, do you think it's slightly difficult?
Yeah, that's a good point. I've got an Italian friend, and she's vegetarian, or she was vegetarian before she came to Japan,
Yeah.
and she just kind of gave up. It's very difficult. There was literally at one time where you would have to explain the meaning of vegetarian every single time you went to a restaurant.
Yeah.
Because, of course, like I was saying earlier, sometimes they use words from English. And a vegetarian is vegetarian in Japanese. So it's like a new
Oh, okay.
concept,
Yeah.
culturally a new concept to them. Yeah, I would say it's probably best to like make your own food a lot if you're vegetarian. But there are some resources like the Japan, well, the Tokyo tourism offices. They have information for vegetarians, also
Okay.
halal food as well. They've got information on those
Oh, right. Wow.
restaurants. So there are a few places that will give you help. It's usually, yeah, like always best to just go to the local tourism information center in the place you're in, because they'll know, they'll probably have people coming in all the time asking like where are the halal restaurants, where are the vegetarian restaurants, and they'll know which places are safe and which places won't create any issues when you go there.
Yes, we found a chain actually. You probably know it. It's Coco.
Kokoichi, yes.
I think it's got like a yellow label on
Yeah,
their shop.
yeah.
We actually found one in Taiwan. No, it's South Korea. I think we found it in Seoul and Busan, and they do
Yeah.
vegetarian Japanese curries. I love Japanese curries. Probably one of my favorites of any foods. But I love the mix between sort of the Indian and Japanese curry sauces. Unreal.
Yeah.
But they do vegetarian / vegan as well curry options. So we did go
Yeah, I've
go there
tried
quite a
those.
few
Yeah,
times.
they're very good, aren't they? Yeah. Yeah, I was surprised you mentioned Coco because I literally go there maybe 3 times a week.
Oh, right.
Yeah, yeah,
I love it. I absolutely love it.
yeah.
Yeah.
I literally have the membership card. I literally bought the Coco magazine last year. I'm like one of the members. It's
Shareholder.
yeah, they're so good. Their menu is multilingual.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've got vegetarian options, halal options, options for if you've got different allergies.
Yes.
And there's a really easy menu, so you can just point and there won't be any mistakes. And they also got touch panels at some of their restaurants, so you can use a little tablet and you'll know that you're getting something that is vegetarian or kind of okay for your allergies. So it's really, Coco are really good. You can see why they've expanded so much abroad, like into London as well.
Yeah.
They got restaurants in Hawaii and like I think even India now. I think they even opened a restaurant in Delhi.
Huh.
Like they're just they're a really really good company. Yeah, great food. Yeah.
Yeah, I think in the South Korean one you could actually do it on the app as well.
Oh yes, I think they can do that here as well. Yeah. That's really good as well, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know what? I love their curries. I just love Japanese curry, but I just know what I'm getting and I love it, and it's huge and it's like loads of it. And you can like build up. So if you're hungry, you can add like the large rice or the large, extra large. It's like for an extra bit of money. It's just unreal. And you can add like vegetables or loads of different stuff. Yeah.
Yeah,
awesome.
and like you go on YouTube, you can see people who ordered all the toppings.
Oh right.
It's pretty amazing. But yeah, I can literally like I have like a spider sense for the kokoichi smell. So like, if I'm walking down the street, I can smell it and I know where it is like straight away. It's just like the smell is just amazing, and just just perfect curry. Yeah, couldn't recommend it more.
Is it popular for local Japanese, or is it more of a tourist or expat community?
Oh, it's definitely for everyone here.
Even locals.
Local businessmen will go there. And families will go there. Maybe the older generation not so much, but I'd say any kind of person will go in there. I think. Yeah.
Wow.
Maybe a little bit different for say like. Did you go to like Yoshinoya or Matsuya?
No.
The gyudon chains.
No.
Oh right, yeah, they're so that's the gyudon's kind of meat pork on rice. Yeah, it used to be that it was just businessmen who would go there, but those places are kind of updating their menus and kind of rebuilding some of their restaurants. So they're much more family friendly now and female friendly as well. So it's much more open now. So kind of all sorts of people are going to pretty much any restaurant here. Yeah, it's much better than before. Yeah.
And we also
Mm.
found the Ramen Street. That might have been in Tokyo's main station, train
Oh
station.
yes, yes, that's amazing, isn't it? Yeah,
And they've got vegan options there for ramen as well, I believe, and vegetarian options. So we
yeah.
went there a few
It's
times.
strange you're mentioning all these places that I literally went to in the last few days. I literally went to the Ramen Street on Friday.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. Do you remember which one you tried? What type of ramen was it?
Oh, I can't remember. I think we just found one that was vegan and stuck to it. I couldn't tell you whose that was. Um,
Right.
but I had the vegetarian, so I like the egg in it. So I had that.
Yeah, it's
Um,
nice. Nice to kind of help with the spiciness. Yeah, put some egg in there. Yeah,
yeah, love it. Okay.
yeah,
And how is your Japanese in terms of the language?
yeah. It's okay. It's
Yeah.
okay. Everyday conversations are right. When have I had trouble? Most of the trouble doesn't come from my Japanese. It comes from, like, for example, when I went to the bank, I recently had to change my Japanese name because it wasn't exactly the same as the name on my apartment contract.
Okay.
And when you go in, because it's a completely new concept, you've got to explain to them that as a foreigner, my name is not correct on your system. That kind of thing can create like maybe it's not from the language, it's like it's a situation they've never come across.
Yes. Yeah.
So that kind of thing, like that's usually what's most difficult is thinking, how do I explain this without looking like a crazy foreigner, like rambling on about something? So yeah, I think I always like just sometimes when I'm speaking to a Japanese person, I'm thinking, okay, I'm talking too quick, and it's probably all like mashed together to them. So I have
Mm,
to be like, okay, just like speak slowly, use simple grammar
yeah.
and simple words.
Mhm.
Don't try and like overcomplicate it, and then it's usually okay. Um, and like I said, there's if I'm really in trouble, there might be someone that speaks English.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of at the level now where I don't. That doesn't really. It can often be a hindrance if
Yes.
If their English level's below my Japanese level. That can be a bit annoying. But yeah, if you want to have fun, you can just pretend you don't speak English. It's a really good way to learn Japanese. Yeah, if you go to a bar and you don't want people to speak English, just say you're Italian or French or something, and it will usually work.
Ah, interesting. That's the only
Yeah,
downfall being English spoken, isn't it? I know we get
yeah,
criticized a lot for not learning languages, and I get it. That's a totally acceptable criticism. But I do try and learn any language. If I'm traveling there, I will try and speak it. But as soon as they get a
yeah,
whiff that you're English or you can speak it, they will respond back in English, and it doesn't really help you, does it?
yeah. I think maybe in other countries because people are more confident with their English,
Yeah.
it's different. In Japan, like it can be a situation where like you're trying to speak a bit of English, but they just won't. They won't want to. They might. You might know that they speak English, or they'll be too shy to actually try it out on you.
Yeah.
Which that can be quite good if you want to learn Japanese. There are sometimes frustrating situations where people are trying to speak English, but then like I don't know. I'm kind of at the stage now where I want to kind of encourage it a bit because yeah, it is kind of nice when they try. Sometimes I might go bilingual on them and speak a bit of English, a bit of Japanese.
Yeah. Mhm.
It's kind of cool when they're trying out and like when some people are just so shy. It's nice to like at the end just tell them. It's nice to say in Japanese, your English is really good. Keep it up
Mm.
because yeah, like I think some people need a kind of confidence boost with their English here.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Yeah,
And are you studying Japanese? Is that why you're there on a student visa, or have you got like another course that you're doing there?
yeah. I'm kind of studying Japanese at the moment, so kind of brushing up on the main Japanese, and then I'm going to do some courses on tourism Japanese and
Okay.
also a business Japanese, which
Yeah.
is completely, in some ways, completely different. So they have this thing called keigo, which is polite
Yeah.
Japanese. Sometimes completely new words or ways to say things. And then, of course, in tourism, kind of ways you want to speak to different types of people,
Yeah.
your boss, in particular, also, customers, people you're guiding around or helping. Yeah, there's a lot of extra words to learn. Even some Japanese people even go on courses to learn keigo.
Oh wow.
Um,
Huh.
yeah, I used to teach a university student English, and she was telling me that she went on a course to learn keigo because she wanted to work at a restaurant and the hotel businesses.
Yeah.
There are words that they'll when they hear it they'll understand it, but they won't know the sentence structure themselves, so they have to go on a course.
Oh,
It's kind of
crazy.
funny. Yeah.
Huh. Wow. Okay. I want to touch briefly on your super cheap series for
Oh yeah.
Japan and also other parts of the world, because these are a bit more for the maybe bigger trip, right? Not Tokyo specific. So you have one called
Yeah.
Super Cheap Japan, right? Which I assume is tips and tricks and knowledge and stuff about the country as a whole to travel to.
Yeah, that's kind of based aimed at people who are coming here maybe for the first time.
Yeah.
They're a bit worried about money and how much they're going to spend. So that will take people to the main spots in Japan, so like Kyoto or Nara, also like Hiroshima and Nikko. So you'll hit all the main spots. Plus, there's a few like things you could do on the way that may be
Hmm.
a little bit off the beaten track, not so touristy, but are well connected. There's like English support available at the tourist information centers and like English maps
Yeah.
and English signs. I would recommend Super Cheap Japan to someone who's coming here for the first time, is looking at some of the prices and kind of worried about how much money they're going to spend.
Yeah. Because would you say Japan is an expensive country as a whole to travel into?
Yeah, I mean, compared to say like if you're going to Thailand or
Mm.
Cambodia, yes, those places are much cheaper. I mean, the flights are expensive now to Japan. They're about twice of what they used to be, I think.
Yeah.
Like the exchange rate is just so good that once you're here, it's you don't have to worry too much. When my dad came like a while ago, he didn't really worry about how much money he was spending because it just compared to back home, it was just so cheap to go to a restaurant. Like some of the more expensive places we would go to, I'd be like, oh my gosh, I would not, use my Japanese salary on that, but it was just quite reasonable to him. And then, yeah, if you use a book like Super Cheap Japan, you can kind of get more of a gist for the passes, the rail pass, and the bus passes. So you can really plan a trip based around places on these passes, and yeah, make sure you don't spend too much money on transportation. Which can if you don't use a pass, the trains can get expensive.
Yeah.
For example, if you take a train trip on the Shinkansen up to Aomori, which is almost the most northern Shinkansen station on Honshu, the main island, it can be about
Hmm.
20,000 yen
Oh wow.
one way. But if you get a Japan Rail Pass, I think they've gone up recently, but if you did a few trips of that length on the Japan Rail Pass, you start saving quite a lot of money. So yeah, if you as long as you plan a lot and and you find a good plane ticket, you should be okay.
Yeah, I think the Japanese rail pass is the 100% number one tip, because it's so
Yeah,
fast and reliable that just pay if you do two in a week. I think you probably got already your money, not say back, but yeah, like you say, individual tickets will just build up in price from what I saw when I went 5 years ago. So I think
yeah.
even now the Japanese rail pass price might seem a bit steep, but actually it's not.
Mm.
When you use the actual train system going about from one city to another, I think it absolutely is the best way to get going. I think in Japan, the easiest way anyway.
Yeah, because they had a massive price rise recently, and it was big news.
Ah, okay.
But even if you can still once you're on a certain number of trips, you can still start to save a lot of money.
Mm.
I think it was so cheap in the beginning that it was just seemed quite a shock when the prices increased. There's a pretty big increase. It was 70%.
Oh wow. Wow. Okay.
The pass before the price increase was about 30,000 yen, and it
Yeah.
went to 50,000 yen for 7 days. But that's price for one single trip to Aomori. So if you travel around a lot, you can still save a lot of money, I think, even with this price increase.
Yeah. I think it's just an accepted cost you've got to factor in,
Mm.
because there's no better way to get going on the Shinkansen to any city. It's such a cool way to travel.
Yeah, and in terms of like money, like you're saving a lot of money from just in time as well.
Yeah. I think we're in this weird space right now where post-COVID countries or tourism boards or tourism stuff, it's just increasing in price because they're trying to probably claw back some losses throughout
Mm.
this few years. I found this year is extremely expensive for what I thought it'd be. So I think it's a bit of a lesson
Yeah,
learned there.
maybe like from next year, 2 years' time things will start to get a bit more normal. But I'm still shocked with the like plane ticket prices.
Yes,
Just some of them are so expensive. It's shocking.
because we finished our trip in Asia this year. We looked at flights going from sort of East Asia
Mm,
to Vancouver, which is the only area of the world which flies direct from that side. There's like 4 or 5
yeah.
cities, right? There's like Tokyo's one, Manila is one, and one in Philippines, Bangkok, Singapore, and Seoul. But the cheapest one was Seoul. It just about came out on top. But that
All
wasn't
right.
cheap. Best of a bad bunch in terms of price.
COVID kind of finished a while ago, but I think, yeah, like you say, it's just taking, want to get some money back, don't they?
Yeah.
Need to make some profit for a while. And then hopefully things will get back to normal.
Yeah. And you have a super cheap series on New Zealand as well, which is quite interesting.
Yeah, so I did a working holiday there for a few years, so I was
Yeah.
like, okay, it would be good to do a New Zealand guide as well. So yeah, a bit like the Japan one. It's the main sites, and I was lucky to work at one of the tourism companies there, so got a few little insider tips for that company.
Yeah.
Not official, maybe not officially sanctioned, but yeah, another ways to get some cheap deals. I recommend that as well as yeah, if you're going to New Zealand for the first time. Yeah, you just want to do the main sites, but you're also a little bit worried about price because
costs.
Yeah, New Zealand doesn't have as many like deals as Japan, but there are still a few like websites and resources that you can use and combo deals with tours that are quite good. Yeah.
This is a patron shout out to Laura from the Swamp Soup Stickers, who has contributed £5 to the podcast on my Patreon. Thank you so much for your support. Really appreciate it, and it helps the podcast to keep going in the future. If you're interested, head to the show notes where you'll find a link to my Patreon. The website address is patreon.com/Winging It Travel Podcast. For £5 English, you will receive some trendy stickers from myself in the post, a shout out on each episode, and also my digital travel planner by email. Thank you for your support. Yeah, nice one. Yeah, I think New Zealand is definitely a country that is on the expensive part of travel, based on my experience there. Done a working visa there. Expensive all round.
Yeah. What about Australia? How did you find that in comparison?
Equally as expensive.
Really?
Yeah. But that was a long time ago. That was 10 years ago, Australia working visa. But yeah, always long to go back a little bit because I think you can earn good money there. But as a traveller on a whole, I ran out of money. So it was a bit of a shock. Had to get a job pretty quickly.
It was Australia where, like, before I always stayed in like hotels, and I went to Australia, and then I was like, okay, I'm going to do hostels from now on.
Yeah, no choice.
Yeah, yeah, no choice. Yeah.
And any lasting advice for anyone who's looking to book a trip to Japan?
Because as far in advance as you can. In terms of plane tickets, try and be as flexible as possible with time, and then maybe go and ask your boss if you can take time off. Say to your boss, okay, in this month I'm thinking about traveling, when is good, and then you could be really flexible. And with your flight tickets, Airbnb is not so popular as you might expect, but it's still an option. If you're solo traveling or traveling with friends, there are so many hostels you can stay at. But if you've got a big family, you might have trouble. In that case, yeah, look at Airbnb, and there might be some place that's better than a hotel, some hotels might not even be able to accommodate larger families. Yeah, in terms of COVID, you don't need to worry anymore. Everything's kind of opened up. Immigration's pretty much back to normal. Holiday season's here. That can get expensive.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So definitely avoid Golden Week, if you can, which is the main holiday time here. If you save a few £100 on a flight, go for it.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's the flight at the minute. It's a bit of a cost. Yeah, that's great. And where can people find your latest book, but also your super cheap series books in case they want to get some ideas of how to do it on a budget? Where can they buy them? And your website and social media?
Yeah, so the books you can get from any bookshop. If you go to, it's available on like Amazon, and in America, Barnes and Noble, and then in the UK on the Waterstones website. All the books will be available on those websites. In terms of like your local bookshop, if you are in Australia or America, you can go to Kinokuniya, which is the main Japanese bookshop chain. They'll have them stocked on the shelves. But yeah, if you go to like a local bookshop, you can still order. So you can go into there and just order, and they'll deliver it to the shop. Yeah, and in terms of social media, you can find me on Facebook, on Instagram at Super Cheap Japan, and I'll be posting up different pictures from my travels, and actually pretty regular pictures of the hoko curries that I'm having as well.
Yeah, I've seen
I think I
that.
have about one every few weeks posted up there as well.
Yeah.
So if you want to see the latest weird curry, so they have like the latest one is cheese mince katsu.
Oh,
Check
wow.
it out, and I'll put some stories with the lovely curries. Yeah.
Okay, I will share the links for the books. I'll find those links that you mentioned for the books, and obviously I'll put in
Oh, cheers.
the social media in the show notes so people can click that. Yeah, and
Thank
I'm
you. Yeah.
actually going to look forward to. I didn't get time to read it all, unfortunately, but I've now got a bit of time, so I'm going to read Tokyo Outdoors and see what I have seen and what I haven't seen, and then plan my next trip. And look
Yeah.
forward
Cheers.
to
Yeah.
checking out some new stuff. Because when I go back, I think I ticked off a few. What I'd say is the classics, right?
Mm.
But I would love to. I was saying to Emma earlier, my partner's like, oh, I wish I had this before we went last time, because then we can pick a few areas to go and maybe stay in, or at least go and visit for a day and do some walks. So yeah, really looking forward to checking out some local areas and go and see them in the future. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah. That'll be really cool. Yeah, and definitely. Yeah. Send me an email. Tell me what you think, and if you came across any surprises. Yeah, it's good to hear back from readers as well.
Yeah, awesome. Okay. We're going to finish the episode with some quickfire travel questions. So these are
Well, okay. Yeah.
normally generic from your travels, not just Japan specific, but I might chuck in a few Japanese ones because
Cool.
you're a local now, so that's cool. But I'm first going to start with
It's travel question time.
your top 3 favorite countries that you traveled to. I can't let you choose Japan because that's obvious.
Okay.
So excluding Japan, what 3 countries have you traveled to that are your favorites?
So number one is definitely Taiwan.
Yeah.
That's just like an amazing mix of there's Chinese Japanese culture. There's
Mm-hmm.
also local culture, which is very different from what you'd expect. Completely different languages and different culture. It's really amazing. Cambodia is really nice. Yeah, I did a few bicycle rides there, and that's just really cool. Just very chilled out, friendly people. You got the main tourist webs places like Angkor Wat, but
Yeah.
there are so many cool places like just like half an hour away, and you can explore by yourself or do pretty cheap tours. It's a really amazing country. Third place would be New Zealand. It is like
Yeah, it's up there, isn't it?
there's so many like Brits there that are just so happy to be there. It's like Britain but nicer weather. It's just a really nice place to live and a great place to travel. Just super nice people, chilled out, really funny. And the scenery is just amazing. You know, oh, it's Lord of the Rings scenery, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely is. I think you're right about that. It's such a it's a nicer UK, isn't it? Controversially.
Yeah.
Okay. What about 3 countries that you've not traveled to that's next on your hit list?
Oh yeah. So the weird thing is I've never actually been to South Korea,
Okay.
even though it's so close. And
Yes,
just
just over the
hearing like
water.
what you
Yeah.
say, yeah, and
Yeah.
other people say, I just got to go there and compare to Japan.
Yeah.
So I was lucky to go to Russia before everything happened for the Ukraine war.
Hmm.
But I would love to go to Ukraine when
Okay.
everything's
Yeah.
settled down.
Yeah.
Just hearing about what's the city on the western side, is it Lviv?
Lviv.
Lviv?
Lviv.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
it's a
just
cool
sounds
city that.
really beautiful. Yeah,
Yeah.
and Odessa, right?
Odessa. Yeah.
That's got lots of European, like old European, like buildings, and
Mm.
that would just be a really amazing place to go to. I've never been to South America, so I'd
Hmm.
love to go to Brazil or
Yeah.
Argentina just to try something completely different. I don't know anything about those places apart from football and a few other like classic things. But yeah, I'd love to go to those places. Yeah.
Okay. And what about 3 favorite Japanese cities?
So I'll exclude Tokyo, shall I?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a given.
I think I'm going to diss Osaka and I'm going to pass on Osaka.
Okay.
That's the rival to Tokyo.
Yeah.
You might get some angry emails about that.
Yeah, probably.
Kyoto is probably the top one because it's not just the main tourist sites, not just the main World Heritage sites. There's so much more to see. It's also the Nintendo hometown as well. So if
Oh
you're into
wow, didn't know
Nintendo,
that. Huh.
yeah, it's really cool. So you like, for example, last time I went, I went to the old HQ when it
Ah,
was a trading card company, and it's now a lovely, super posh hotel with a nice cafe. And there's also like there's going to be a Nintendo museum opening soon. Kyoto's really cool. And also I'd say yeah, Nara is really nice.
hmm.
As well as the deer, you've also got some really cool temples and shrines, lovely parks, and yeah, just a kind of a nice, nice touristy feel, but not overwhelming like some places. Kagoshima in the south of Kyushu, that's got Sakurajima, which is an active volcano.
Yeah,
Sometimes active volcano, right? And it's so you can do tours there and like really nice food as well. Amazing hot springs as well.
awesome. Okay, if you
Mm,
could pick one city in the world to
yeah.
drink a coffee and watch the world go by, where are you going to sit?
Hainan, slightly to the west in the center.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't know, have you been there?
No, we only went to Taipei and Kaohsiung.
Oh, right. Yeah. So you kind of went past Tainan. Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, Tainan's it's a city, but it's got its own identity. Quite a lot of Dutch culture. Just going there, if you sit in a cafe, it's very like normal, like everyday life going on outside, and it's not like cleaned up like Taipei or Kaohsiung. It's still kind of rough and ready,
Yeah.
but it's not noisy. It's kind of really kind of old fashioned. So yeah, that would be like a really nice place just to sit and have a cup of tea.
Oh, awesome. You mentioned your food favorites in Japan, but I'm going to go
Yeah.
international. Your three favorite international cuisines, your country's favorite foods.
Oh yeah. So I think the noodles in Taiwan are pretty amazing, or as is the tapioca or the bubble tea. Australia, it was kind of fun trying like crocodile meat.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
It's not the best taste, but it's kind of you can try fun little weird
Interesting.
things, can't you?
Yeah.
Canada has some good food.
Mm.
Um, Most famous is poutine,
Yeah.
which is chips with gravy and mozzarella curds or cheese curds. It's not the most healthy thing in the world, but it's just so amazing. And then also like some great like French food and like fusion food, and even like some in Toronto, some amazing like Mexican food, like burritos.
Yes.
Like
It's great there.
there's a place called Burrito Boys, which I loved. It's like a local chain in Toronto, just amazing burritos.
And what about a favorite beach that you've been to?
I did a few in Malaysia, a few of the islands
Oh, yeah.
on the west side.
Langkawi?
It began with an L. Yeah,
Yeah, Langkawi. Amazing.
yeah, kind of in the west side, kind of reasonably kind of center left, kind of yeah, yeah. That was just really chilled out, getting a drink from the cafe, watching out for the monkeys taking your food.
Yeah,
It's
classic.
quite funny. Yeah, I think they stole
Stressful.
some Oreos, so that was all right.
Yeah, those summer crisps. Wasn't happy with that.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah,
man.
classic.
Or maybe if you come to Japan and you go to Nagano,
Okay.
be careful of the monkeys because they'll steal your food.
Of
And they'll
course.
also relax in your hot spring as well. They might join you in the hot spring.
Okay. Interesting. What about three Japanese words that people should at least know if they're going to Japan?
Oh, yeah. So, arigato,
Hmm.
which is the thank you, or kudasai. So, if you add something to or kudasai, you're saying something, please. So, if you, for example, want ketchup,
Yeah.
you say ketchupu or kudasai.
Okay.
You can just say ketchup kudasai, and people will understand what you mean
Yeah.
or what you want. Either be i or i desu ne, which means that's good.
Oh, okay.
Even if you're in a shop and they're
Yeah.
asking you something, just say i desu ne. Then they know you're kind of happy with that purchase or that choice.
Ah,
Yeah,
very
but maybe
interesting.
never say no. Don't say no, and don't
Oh,
say which is yeah. Maybe if you're a tourist, you can kind of get away with it, but it's
right.
quite direct. if you don't want something, just
Yeah.
kind of make a look. Or actually, if I had add a fourth word, I would say
Yeah.
chotto is really useful. Chotto means, literally translated, means like a little or I'm not so sure.
Okay.
But because you don't want to say no in Japan, if you just say chotto, then people will understand you're saying no in a very soft way.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
That takes a bit of time for foreigners to understand that you're not actually saying no. You're kind of saying ooh, and then people will understand what you mean.
Ah, very interesting. Okay. And the last question is going to be
Mm,
if you could give some words as to why someone should travel in general, go and travel the world, see some countries, and then maybe
mm.
secondly, why they should go to Japan, what would you say?
I would say, in terms of like any kind of travel, it really opens up your mind, not just to like what we are talking about earlier, like politics, but like seeing the different struggles that people have is
Mm,
it's. I guess as Brits, we're very privileged, and going abroad and seeing the struggles people have, it makes you kind of understand how lucky you are, which is good. Like whenever you've got any trouble in your life, you think, okay, some people have got it way worse than I have.
mm,
That's really kind of good, isn't it?
yeah,
And yeah, as you travel around, you don't just learn from other people, but you help them as well. So in terms of Japan, it's really rewarding, like coming here and, for example, just even teaching English, seeing
yeah.
how people can open up more when they're speaking English rather than Japanese. Like they have like the kind of English mode. Like some bilingual people here will say like they have a Japanese mode and the English
Ah,
mode, and
interesting.
it's like a different person. They can be
Mm.
much more open in English. Also, of course, in Japan, if they had a few beers, they'll be much more open as well. So, like I'd say, yeah, if you meet a Japanese person, they look quite like strict. Have a few beers with them, and yeah, you'll have a good time. Yeah, don't worry. But yeah, in terms of coming to Japan, I'd say kind of related to what I was saying about the word chotto earlier, like it maybe softens people living in this country. Like, for example, if you're a nerd and you come to Japan, like I
Mm.
was, and suddenly it kind of boosts your confidence. I think that's definitely something that's happened. A lot of people come to Japan, they become much more confident, much more outgoing. Something kind of unique to Japan because Japanese people really are great listeners. That really helps to boost people's confidence and kind of makes them more outgoing. So I definitely say that's a great thing about Japan.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I think that's a great
Yeah.
tip, but also kind of nice to hear, right? For people who maybe listen who are a self proclaimed nerd or whatever or geek.
Yeah. If you're like an introvert, it's a
Yeah,
great place
introverted.
to
Yeah,
come.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because I was speaking to Miyuki about that because she sort of bases her podcast on being the introvert and
Oh, yeah.
how you can help yourself by traveling in Japan with that's not mentality, is this is the way you are. So yeah, it's quite an interesting dynamic.
Like, had a friend, he came over here, and I remember introducing him to someone because you do that kind of a lot in Japan.
Yeah.
He was unbelievably nervous to the point of being angry. And now he's got a child. He's married with a child. And
Hmm.
just the transition he went through from being a super, super geek to like getting married, it's just amazing to see that transition. Uh, it's like that kind of thing can happen in Japan. You can yeah completely change your life here.
To finish, I think also people maybe an example for both of us is like growing up in the UK. And some people like the culture, some people don't. And if you don't like the culture, I know someone who is from Norwich here. He lives in Japan, and I think he's now got a girlfriend there, and he's sort of settled there, sort of same time zone as like sort of 10 years. And
Yeah,
obviously, he just loves the culture there, and that's fine. That you might find a culture that you like, not only Japan, it could be any other country, and just feel like you want to settle there. So yeah, it's quite cool. People find these places and decide that's it.
yeah, I definitely say like yeah, do some backpacking around and see which is the place for you, and if you like it, yeah, find us some local job. You never know, you might yeah settle down.
Awesome. Thanks, Matthew, for coming on the podcast. Learned a lot about Tokyo in Japan. I do love the country. It's on the list to go back. And when I'm in Tokyo, we'll go for a walk.
Yeah, definitely. I'll take you to some weird cafe or some themed restaurant. Yeah, thanks very much for having me on.
And we'll chuck in Coco as well.
Oh yes, definitely. Yeah. Yeah. Well, whenever anyone comes to Japan, I have to take them to Kokoya.
Yeah, it's a must. Cheers, Steve. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to my Winging It Travel podcast episode today. You can find me on Instagram at James Hammond Travel or Winging It Travel Podcast. You can search for both. I release weekly clips of this podcast episode, as well as photos from the last 8 to 10 years of my travels. You can also follow me on TikTok, Facebook and Pinterest by searching Winging It Travel Podcast. I do release daily content to do with travel and the podcast throughout the week. Also check out my website, jameshammond.org. There's content about myself, my travels, and there's also a newsletter sign up as well as a contact form. Finally, please rate and review the podcast on Podchaser. This is my platform of choice. Alternatively, you can rate this on Apple or wherever you get your podcasts from. This really helps the podcast gain a bit of traction for the future in terms of guests and content. And I'm glad to see that you guys are listening out there, reviewing it and enjoying the content so far. Stay safe, stay humble, keep listening, keep traveling, and I'll catch you soon. Cheers, James.